And in that moment, I considered, and we've played that pattern out. He gets annoyed because I'm distracted. He's very, very cross. We sleep in separate bedrooms. We love each other the next day, and we forget it's happened again and again and again. And so I thought, okay, let's do something differently. And that's all healing is. Healing is a pattern interrupt. It's doing something differently. It's opening to more possibility.
Hey, it's Renee. Welcome to the Into the Wild Show, the podcast for women who want to build incredible mental strength to level up their business and lifestyle. I'm Renee Warren, the founder of We Wild Women, author, speaker, award-winning entrepreneur, and your host. Together, we will make you unapologetic about shining your light, growing your business, and turning you into a wildly confident and successful leader. This is for you, the visionary, the go-getter, the entrepreneur, and for those that need a real kick in the butt to get going and to dream bigger. Each week, I bring in leading experts and entrepreneurs to help you take leaps in the right direction, because I know the best advice comes from someone who has successfully done it before. So, are you ready to level up? Welcome to Into the Wild. My next guest is the founder and creator of the School of Integrative Healing and the System of Integrative Healing. Integrative Healing is an all-encompassing, multi-modality, and multi-dimensional system of healing that takes you from the physical aspects of healing all the way into the energetic. The system of inner healing teaches you how to transform your life from the inside out and how to step into your greatness and limitless potential. My guest today works with high achievers, action takers, visionaries, and leaders in their field. Jana and I discuss all things about the importance of healing as it pertains to being an entrepreneur, a mother, a partner, and why everybody you see, including yourself, needs healing consistently. And it's actually a beautiful practice. So join us today as we crush the idea of having to live the same identity for our entire lives and what that means for you growing your business. Please welcome the incredible Jana Bartlett.
Hello. So good to be here.
Thanks for dialing in from the other side of the pond.
I know. You're like morning, and for me, you can see it's like the last thing I do before bed. But I'm excited to be here.
We're not even lunchtime yet. I think it's funny that they call it the pond because isn't it the biggest ocean? The Atlantic Ocean.
Probably.
It makes us seem closer if it's just a pond.
Mm-hmm.
Well, welcome for joining us. Thank you so much for hopping on. I know it's close to bedtime and we were trying to figure out this tech stuff and we finally got it.
The fact that the tech is working means that this is already a huge success. That's the way that I feel.
Right?
I'm like, we've won.
I know.
We've won at life today. I can sleep easy.
Yeah. Well, I'll introduce you to this. So we went from using Zoom to Riverside.fm, which a lot of pro podcasters do because the quality of the video is better and there's some other advantages, but it's new software. And we only started integrating this a few days ago. And so I'm still figuring stuff out, and you don't use a certain web browser that it needs, and you had to go download that. And so I will say this, though, if you are going on a podcast tour or if your intention is to be on more shows, to get used to this particular platform, because a lot more people are going to start requesting that. So you'll figure out the Chrome on your laptop to actually make it work next time.
Yeah, noted. And I've now got the app, so I'm going to be a pro. By tomorrow, Perfect. No problem.
Yeah. Well, you're welcome for the introduction. Sorry, it was a lot. But here we are, and this is all the part of being an entrepreneur and doing a lot of stuff yourself is you have to figure out this tech. But here we are. And let's dive in, because I know that we have some exciting things to chat about, especially how it reflects on my past 5 years and kind of where I am, and stuff that you teach other people on how to become a better version of themselves, we'll say. So we'll kick things off with some quick questions. I'd love to know, where are you from?
I am Spanish English, hence the Jana with a J. That confuses enough people. Think jalapeno, right? So that's the Spanish, brought up in England, live in Spain.
That's cool. And you're on a very special island in Spain.
I'm in Ibiza. Everyone thinks it's a party island. And I'm like, I go to bed at 10 p.m. with a tea,
10 p.m. is even late for me. But yeah, we actually thought about going there on our last trip, but we had the kids and there was so much to see and we just didn't make it. But it will be a destination for just my husband and I next time with no kids. What was one of the toughest moments you had to face as an entrepreneur?
So I've actually really sat with this and thinking about it. It was actually last year, which isn't that long ago. And I was what I like to call in the void in my business, where I was doing all the right things. I was investing. I was implementing new strategies. I had to pay my team and the results hadn't yet shown up. So it's kind of that time where you're just before something incredible, something really incredible is going to come through, but you can't physically see it yet. And you have to have the courage to keep going like every single day. And I think the toughest bit there is holding the faith, the self-belief, backing yourself, not doubting yourself. So everything you've just put in can come out into fruition. I think that was kind of one of the big terrifying moments, because it looks like, oh, I'm losing money. I'm investing things. I've got to pay for my team. And then actually on the other side of that was when we started doing our first 6-figure weeks, 200K events. And it was really extraordinary. But it was holding that belief before that was really the piece for me.
And you went through with that, because I know a lot of people, that's where they stop, right? And they say the last mile is never crowded. There's a reason for that, because you went that last mile. And a lot of people think, oh my gosh, my program doesn't work. No one wants my product. I've done all this stuff and no one's buying. And when you know there's still like another 1 or 10% where you can push, like do it. Go that extra mile, because that's when you'll start to see those successes come to fruition. This happened for you last year?
I mean, I say, oh, it happened to me once. This happens all of the time, right? Where you're like, is this going to work? Is this going to fail? Am I going to fall off the cliff? But there was a really poignant time last year where my finances actually dipped with it as well, because it was kind of the same moment that I was investing in different mentors, different trainings for different strategies. So it's a specific 1 or 2 months, right? Where in my business for a long period of time, we'd only been increasing in income. And suddenly we have this dip and it comes from nowhere. And the costs are higher. And I'm like, this does not feel safe. And those are exactly the moments, you know, I always say to my clients, it's the contraction before the expansion, right? And it's exactly, say a lot of people think this is just not working and I stop then, but that's the moment you've got to keep going, because then the expansion is on the other side of that. And for me, business is all about courage actually, and being brave enough to lead yourself in those moments. So yes, it's happened many times, but there is one significant time that really comes out in my mind.
Yeah. And that's when you just want to throw in the towel and be like, nah, I'm just going to go work at this really cute coffee shop on the beach. And life is honky-dory.
Why did I want a team?
I know. Oh my gosh. And here's the thing is like, I mean, the most expensive line item, if you have like a service-based business, and other than like office rent and stuff, if you have an office, is your team. But they're also the most important asset. And they're the things that allow your income to fluctuate to points where I recall several times over the course of being an entrepreneur when we were in the red. And we were in the red because while our revenue was growing consistently, we had to make key hiring decisions. And that meant we're hiring an executive level person that is twice the amount of revenue than the average employee. And that's okay. But if you're smart about that investment, then it'll just pay you back in spades. And that happens, right? Most of the time you want to be in the black. Every month you want to be in the black, making money or making profits, but sometimes it just dips into the red.
100%. And I think it helps. I'm actually so happy that we're talking about this, because when you don't have a network of entrepreneurs around you, you might be engulfed by shame. Like, am I doing this wrong? Does this mean that I'm not meant for business? Like, I can't tell anyone. And I love it when entrepreneurs actually create spaces where they tell the truth of like, it's happened to me too. And that can almost give you the strength to keep going, and you'll see that it is only a dip and it is taking you to somewhere better.
Hopefully it does. But too many months in the red is not good.
No.
You have to look at it too from like the perspective of a quarter or 6 months or what your entire year looks like. Because if you were more profitable this year than you were last year, but you had a couple months that were iffy because you made investments into software or team, that's okay, right? That's okay. And especially if you're growing, because your revenue's not necessarily there yet. But that's also the time when you actually need to hire those key players to come in and help you grow your business. Okay, so enough about that. Want to know, what is your favorite quote?
So something that I always say to my clients that they love, that the process of manifestation is not about having, it's about becoming, right? And we can apply this to business as well. We think business is about having the success, having the, hitting 6 figures, 7 figures, 8 figures, wherever you want to go. But it's actually about who you get to become on the journey. And I think that really keeps us grounded in it.
Totally. I love that. Do you know Rachel Luna? She has a podcast called Permission to Offend, and she just published her book, and she's been a mentor of mine for quite some time. And I remember one time I was sending her like a voice note in Instagram DMs, and I was like, I was backing up. It's like all this stuff was happening in the morning. I was packing my kids up to bring them to school. The morning rush is always one of the worst times of the day, right? Because there's like 3 different personalities coming together to try to get out the door with everything we need. And it's just like bombs going off. And then there was stuff that was happening in my business, good things, evolution, growing, getting more clients, to the point now where I was like, I need help. I need to hire more help. I was being very short with the kids. And then there was like this new puppy we got. So I sent her a note and I was like, you know what? I just realized I need to ask myself, who do I need to be to manage this? Who do I need to be to deal with this? It wasn't so much about who do I need to become. It's like, can I be this person now? How can I be this person right now, not become this person to manage? Because becoming that person means a journey could be a week or months or years, right? This person that you've built in your mind. But who can I be right now? And as soon as I allowed myself to ask that question and kind of come to the person that I am in this moment, I realized I am everything I need to be able to deal with this, to be able to deal with the kids and the dog pooping everywhere and all this stuff happening. I can deal with this now, because in the grand scheme of things, it's a beautiful thing. I have a dog, I have kids, I have a house that I have to clean. And so when we can reframe those things, it's like, I'm that person now. I'm not the person I think I should be, but I am a lot of that person right now. And that simple like tweak of that helps you get through so much. Like even the tech issues we were having, I was like ready to throw my computer across the room. I was like, who do I need to be, or who can I be in this moment? It's like, just be you. On my phone, I have a quote that says, how can I appreciate even more everything that I am every single time I look at my phone? Well, I can be impatient, but you know what? Let's just have fun when we live our life. Let's just do this. So I love that about your quote. It is so important. So briefly tell us what it is that you do and who do you serve?
I'm like, where do I begin? I'm like, to set the scene for this, I've got a school. It's called the School of Integrative Healing. Integrative healing is a multiple modality and a multiple dimensional approach to self-healing and self-mastery. So what do I mean by different dimensions of healing? I know I can throw that out there and you're like, but what does that mean, Hannah? So one dimension of healing could be looking at our physical body healing, our hormones, our nervous system. Another dimension of healing could be exactly what you were saying, right? Change of perception. Am I seeing life through eyes of stress or eyes of gratitude? Like that will change your whole life if you apply it. You can look at healing through the dimensional of emotions, of mental healing, of spiritual healing, of energetic healing. So what I do is I've integrated this all into one unified system that I've found through 11 years of being in this world works a lot better than just looking at healing through the eyes of nutrition, right? Or yoga or meditation. I don't know if you remember this, but when I got to the healing world, it's because I was really struggling with depression, anxiety, and I had an eating disorder. And health at that time, and I'm talking about over 10 years ago, was nutrition and yoga and meditation. And that was as far out as we went. And it didn't really give me the results that I wanted. And it wasn't really until I started studying trauma and shamanism and actually our emotional realities and all of this other kind of more nuanced stuff that I actually got results in my life. And I realized that this is the stuff that we need to be talking about. And this is the stuff that's actually going to get you the business results as well. Incredibly, people don't think that. We think healing is to get well, but it's not just that. It's actually, how can I have the biggest life available for me? How can I step into my greatness? How can I live out my potential? So I serve entrepreneurs, mostly women, some men, but mostly women, I'm going to be honest, that are here to not just create a business, but to create a life more so than anything. So they want to step into their greatness in their work. They want to step into their greatness in their relationships, right? All forms of relationships, in their physical health. They're here to live an extraordinary experience.
Hey, ladies. Now, before we continue on with Hannah, the incredible soul that she is, I wanted to tell you a little bit about something that I've been jumping back into as of late. You may have heard on previous shows, I am getting back into the publicist chair, and I am absolutely loving it. So as we're learning through this episode with Hannah and unbecoming who we once were to become a better version of ourselves, and unfolding like a lotus leaf and healing to allow ourselves to focus on the things we love to do, I'm back in doing PR. And there were many roadblocks for me, one of which was I was so worried about what other people said. And then, as I alluded to in the show, college professors that said, who am I to be in fourth year honors student at school because of my poor writing skills? All that aside, I know I'm a great writer. And so think about all those like inner child stories that we have that keep surfacing every day. And I bet you there's some in there that tell you you're not good enough. You're not successful enough. You're not pretty enough, whatever that means. And all that wrapped up in a little pretty bow that stops you from doing the things that you love to do. And that is also promoting your business. So as a publicist, I work with a lot of women in business, and they hesitate being on camera. They hesitate showing up for podcast interviews or contributing content, whatever it is to get the media. And it's one thing that we work on together. So I'm offering done for you PR services. This is myself and my team, a small team, and we do the media kit creation, the media list creation. We pitch the media, we come up with angles, we find the places that your audience are hanging out online. And we go and we find the publications and the outlets that can help you shine. So if you're interested in getting your own publicist to work with you hand in hand, then go to wewildwomen.com/sidelines to headlines. And as a little bonus, if you scroll down to the bottom of wewildwomen.com, there is a free guide called Media Pitch Examples Proven to Get You Press Coverage. I dare you to go and download it, and you'll see kind of how I work. And I actually give you templated pitches that I've used to get my clients in top media. So go check it out. My one-on-one PR services, wewildwomen.com/sidelines to headlines. You know what I love about this, and something I only allowed myself to believe maybe in the last few years, was how everybody needs to heal. So we think of like healing as for somebody who's broken, who went through this devastating traumatic experience. They have PTSD, but healing is for everybody. Mm-hmm. And it's not just like we heal once, we need to constantly be healing, because there's little things like you think about it. Perfect example, talking about my friend Rachel. She explains this example as she was used to be a Marine and she served overseas. Like she's a hardcore person. This example was that there were, this hospital for American soldiers overseas. And there was an incident that happened. And there was one man who something happened, like a roadside blast happened, and he ended up losing his legs. But he was alive, but he lost his legs. And then on the floor above him, there was a man who was in a similar blast, and he ended up losing his pinky toe. And the difference in the mentality between these two men were crazy. So here's what happened. And this is like looking in on an example of which we don't actually know the entire story. The man who lost his legs was happy to be alive because he could have died. The man who lost his pinky toe was irate because, it had nothing to do with the toe and everything to do with the fact that there was other people in that vehicle that lost their lives. And so he wasn't upset about the toe per se, but upset about he lost his friends. So when you think about healing, it's like you can't judge somebody because we think they have this most perfect, beautiful life and they're not allowed to suffer and they're not allowed to be in pain because they have access to everything. Anybody can heal because at any moment, somebody says something, does something that actually hurts us. So now we need to heal. So I love to know in that, not using that example, but an understanding how every single listener right now, mostly women entrepreneurs, need to heal on some level, especially to become a better entrepreneur, a better mother, maybe a better partner. What are some exercises or teachings that you offer these people in order to lean into the greatness that they can potentially become?
So let me give you a really interesting example that happened between me and my partner on Sunday night. I shared about this on my social media just to understand how we all have wounds, right? And actually we all need to heal. So my partner is ex-military, 13 years in the military. You would not see him and think, oh, this is a man that needs to heal. He is about 7 times my size. I'm like one of his arms, okay? I'm like a very small person. You can't see on this, but I'm a tiny Spanish woman.
I can tell. And I'm like, I feel like anybody's 7 times your size. You're a tiny person. You are.
It's like this really just huge veteran, right? He was 2 wars, sinking ship before he was 19. He's very misunderstood. It's interesting. That's a different conversation when you see him. Mm-hmm. But obviously we have a very intimate relationship and he does men's work. So he does a lot of trauma healing and a lot of this work. So it's not new to him. I'm sat Sunday night, I'm in our bedroom and I'm just buying some furniture and he suddenly just has this mass reaction at me. And I'm like, you know, when you're just confused, you're like, they are feeling very emotional and I don't understand what's happened right now in my logical reality to create the argument that I can see, right, is going to explode right now. So he's getting very frustrated with me. You're distracted, you wanted to spend time together. And in moments of conflict, and I'm going to talk about our relationships, even though this is applicable to business. In moments of conflict, we've always got 2 choices. We can go into the pattern that we're used to being in, right? So I could have got cross at him. I could have been like, oh, how dare you get annoyed with me and you're ruining my Sunday. I'm going to stop and I'm going to sleep. We've got 2 bedrooms. I'm going to sleep in the other bedroom and you're going to sleep alone as punishment for ruining my bliss. You know, we do this. We like to project and we like to blame, right? So I could have done that.
Oh, I'm good at that. I'm getting better, but yes, I am good at that.
I am also good at that. Okay. And so, but this one night, this is why I'm using this example, because I was like, look at me, guys, applying stuff. And in that moment, I considered, and you know, we've played that pattern out. He gets annoyed because I'm distracted. He's very, very cross. We sleep in separate bedrooms. We love each other the next day and we forget it's happened again and again and again. And so I thought, okay, let's do something differently. And that's all healing is. Healing is a pattern interrupt. It's doing something differently. It's opening to more possibility. And so in this moment, I just asked him, what is the meaning that you are giving to me searching for furniture to decorate our gym on my phone?
Wow.
Right? That is what
That's amazing. Oh, wow. Yeah.
What is the meaning that you are giving this? That was my question, because I was like, what is going on in his head is not coherent with reality right now. Like, I'm just like, babe, I want to buy a fluffy cushion for the chair, you know, and that's not the zone that he's in. And so he says, well, in my head, and he's really cross. He's like, I just think you're distracted and you don't want to spend time with me. Why do I bother? Why do I bother? I'm not even in a relationship with you. And it's this huge emotional story. And you can just tell in that moment, the adult's gone. And this is childhood wound, right? When you get good at picturing this and noticing. So he's coming back with this big emotional story. And you guys don't have to run this practice exactly. This is a practice that I can teach, but I'll kind of make clear at the end of this what you need to look out for. And I ask him to like, what's the emotion that you feel when you tell me that? And he says, frustration. I mean, I could tell he felt frustrated. But frustration, it's really interesting. It's a protective emotion. So when someone's feeling frustration or rage, and know this for your life, there's usually something underneath that that's more painful to feel that you don't want to feel. And so I'm like, babe, what's underneath that? And he's like, I'm just really sad. I'm just really, really sad. And you can track trauma back in your body. And so I said, where is the sad? And he puts his hand on his heart. Big military guy, imagine this. He's got his hand on his heart. It's really cute. And I'm like, when was the first time you felt this? And he starts crying. That's a powerful image for me as a partner. And it's a powerful image, I think, to see someone so big and stoic, actually. And he's like, I'm 9 and I'm running up the stairs and my mum's shouting at me and I'm so frustrated. And my dad's left and it's just my mum with 3 boys and I'm the youngest and no one cares about me and I'm alone. And I say, what do you feel in that moment? And he's like, I'm so frustrated. And I'm like, Craig, what happens then? And he says, I go to my bedroom, I sit down and I'm like, what's the story you're telling yourself as a child? And he says, I'm alone and I'm unimportant. And he cries, just to tie this together. The trigger of me being distracted was triggering a childhood wound of I'm alone and I'm unimportant. It wasn't the war that created this trauma. It was a simple event that we all live that imprinted on his psyche and his emotional field right? Which every time triggered creates that reaction. When we found that and healed that in a process, this is stepping into your greatness. This is healing. Guess what there was? More love, more intimacy. And now, when I'm distracted, the meaning that he gives it unconsciously, because it's all unconscious, is not that I don't love him, is that I'm looking at furniture.
It's so interesting because some people will look at it as you buying a pillow. And I'm assuming you were looking online for decor furniture. And you were
correct,
deep into it, distracted, and that you were probably enjoying the moment. And let me tell you, picking out pillows is tough. I know this. Sometimes it's really tough. Right. And so he looks at this as it being a non-important task. And really, it's not that important. But for you in that moment, it was something that you wanted to do. And he was like, I just want her love and attention right now. How hard is it to get that? And that's like him telling himself, and this is building up to the point where it's like, boom. And you're like, it's just a pillow. It's just a pillow. And now you have this story that you can share, and allowed him also to identify this. And maybe he didn't even know. And so we all have these stories inside too. Even prior to this, I was trying to do a Facebook Live interview with somebody in my Facebook group, but I'm using this new platform. And you got me thinking, it's like, I was so frustrated that when Andrea, my friend, my previous coaching client that showed up to be interviewed to teach my group how she sold her business, which was a very important topic of which people were waiting, and we couldn't make it work. I was so frustrated that I didn't even say hi to her. How are you doing? I was like, just a second. I got to figure out this tech. And then we tried something else. It was 30 minutes later. And people were like, hey, when's the live going to start? And I'm like, wow. And you had me thinking there for a moment. I was so frustrated. And now I know why. I was worried people are going to think I'm incompetent. And then if I'm incompetent, who am I, the person to teach you how to sell your business? And now they're just going to not trust me or hire me. And I'm like, it was a Facebook Live of which we ended up recording the episode anyway. And I shared the recording. People are probably going to prefer that anyway, because they can go back and like look at it at their own time. But I was telling myself how incompetent I was. That's not true.
It's not true. And this is the thing that's really interesting, is that we think the thoughts that we have are just new thoughts. But I'm not competent or I'm incompetent. That won't be the first time that you've thought that. It won't be the second time that you've thought it, right? That's going to be one of your loops. And now you've found that, right? When you go back to that memory and you do the process to heal it, or you just become aware and you shift it every time it comes up, that's a pattern interrupt, right? And new possibilities open. Who am I in the world now when I don't think or I don't fear that I'm incompetent? How do I show up as a leader when I don't think that I'm incompetent? And this is how it affects our business. And I always get reflected back in my containers as my authenticity, you know, with my group, because I have a lot of leaders and entrepreneurs, and I really teach that we can be successful by being who we are. And sometimes there's imperfection to that, right? And that's so healing for our inner childs that think that we have to be so perfect in everything to be loved and liked. And if not, we're not safe, right? So what can we take from this? What's the question? When we get triggered, when we get the frustration, when we get the emotion, what's the question? What is the meaning that I'm adding to this? What is the meaning that I'm adding to this? Followed by, what if that's not true?
What if that's not true? And then if I can add something that I do is, what is the lesson in this? What do I need to learn in this moment? For me, easy, the Riverside thing, I can't get this Facebook Live going. The lesson learned is new technology means, Renee, you try it ahead of time, not 5 minutes before you're live. I just thought it was going to be seamless. But also that, like, what's the lesson? It's a beautiful gift and it's right there for you to take. It's not like you're not enough or you're incompetent or you're stupid or you're shameful. There's the lesson for you, and you can take it and you can use it to grow, or you can just push it aside.
And if there's a lesson in everything, there's no such thing as failure. And when there's no such thing as failure and we're not trying to avoid failure or falling flat on our faces, we're suddenly more brave.
Yeah. Tony Robbins says things happened for you, not to you. Even in the darkest moments, it's happening for you. And it's like, I can't even think of all the times, like, you've experienced it. Every entrepreneur's experienced it. Like, somebody sue you, your key person quit, you got a bill that you weren't expecting, and like all of a sudden now it's like hell's on earth. It's not that bad. What's the lesson? I bet you will never do those things ever again. Mm-hmm. Okay, so before we started recording, we talked about this identity thing. And I think that you have such probably a great, graceful way of talking about identity. So I know as of late, I've been having a lot of conversations with women that are maybe trying to sell their business or try something new, but they're so afraid of letting go of the momentum they have or the person that they thought they were or are. Perfect example. I went from running a PR agency to coaching to back to PR. And in that transition, I can't say I never should have done coaching because I learned a lot. It was a beautiful experience. But now I'm like, this identity thing was something I had to like separate myself from so much to the point where it was painful because all I worried about was what are people gonna think? What are people gonna say? All wrapped up around this identity. So give me some tips because I know these tips are going to be relevant to other women. I'm out of that process, but right in the middle of it. What would you say I need to be working on?
Have you ever heard Joe Dispenza say, your personality creates your personal reality?
Yes.
There's this really big misconception that our personality is something that is fixed, that we're born with it. There are successful people, there are unsuccessful people, there are PR humans, there are coaches. Like we have this, and this is an unconscious thought bias that we have, right? That if I am this way, it must be who I am. And if I'm being anything else, then it's fake, right? And so firstly, we need to understand that that's a myth, right? Our personality is created. It's created right from your womb experience. There's something called epigenetics. When you're in the womb, the environment in the womb changes, right? The expression of that child, sexuality, mood, like all of these incredible things that you wouldn't imagine, right? So we need to understand that personality is not fixed. And so when you understand personality and therefore identity is not fixed, then we can start to conceive that maybe we don't need to be attached or so attached to what was. Because the truth is, if you want to birth a new life or go to a new level in your life, you're going to have to let go of what was. And that means who you were as well, right? There's a concept that I want to share with you guys. It's called the self-image. So what is identity from a healer or a psychologist perspective? It's the core beliefs around yourself that are held in your unconscious mind. That's all it is. Your unconscious mind can be programmed. Your unconscious mind can be changed. Your core beliefs can be changed. And I'm going to give you a really powerful study in a second. So know that. So even though you may feel like you're metaphorically dying to yourself as you, because it does feel that it's horrendous. It's like, oh my God, especially if you've never been through it. Yeah. You're not actually losing yourself. Feel safe in it. You're not losing yourself. It's not that there was this once cool you and now she's gone. No, it's a metamorphosis.
Oh my gosh. I know. I hate that losing yourself.
Yes, no, it's a metamorphosis. And so we need to be able to trust the deconstruction and actually get really, really clear in what we're hooking into. And this is really interesting. When I have a new goal, right, a business goal, I was really, really shy. My identity as a kid was very, very shy. I was not cool. Like I was the foreign kid at school and I was brown in England. It's all like the little blonde girls with blue eyes that I loved. And I was like, I had this little afro. My hair grew up before it grew down. It was super tiny. I spoke Spanish. Like that was weird. I was in an English school. Yeah. And so my identity was around that I was weird. And that was blocking me in business. And so when I got really serious about some business goals and some impact goals and what I actually came to the world to do, I actually had to sit myself down and be like, what's your self-image? What's the identity you have to hold to match that? And I have worked on it. And that's why my business was as successful as it was so fast, right? It's because I worked on identity as well. So I want to give you one little fact, because this is insane, okay? Because we really have this imprinted in our unconscious. We have in our thinking that identity is fixed, right? They did an experiment on school kids. really small. And they had 2 kids in the class. One kid was very, very intelligent. They got best marks at school, always like this kid. Wow. A. I don't know if you guys use the A system, ABC, whatever in your country.
Yeah.
Okay, amazing. A star, incredible, right? And there was this other kid that tried and they kept getting C's and D's and E's, and they decided to do an intervention. And it wasn't an intervention to get the kid that was struggling to study more. They didn't do that because they'd seen it hadn't worked. What they started to do was to program beliefs in the kid that was doing less well, right? That he was smart and he could do it.
Yeah.
That
He's an A
kid
student.
became an A student. And we are all that kid in different ways. So question what you believe about yourself. Is it really true, or did a teacher just tell you it too many years ago, right?
Oh my God. Damn teachers, let me tell you. That was my college professor. I remember it was like 4th year university, and I handed in a sociology thesis type paper, and I got an A+, top of the class. He's like, this was beautiful. And it had to do with like fashion, and I don't even remember, this was a long time ago, and culture. And then I went to my political philosophy bird course class, of which I had to take in order to graduate, of which nothing I remember. Clearly didn't like the content. And I did okay on I guess it was like a paper or something. I can't remember, an essay. And I literally just walked into that class from my sociology class, and I had my A+, like thick. I don't know how many pages were in this thing. It's like, I worked my butt off for this. And then my other professor gave me a C-, and with a note saying, I can't believe you made it to 4th year university with such poor writing ability. And I looked at this and I said, I have an option to believe what's in my left hand or to believe what's in my right hand right now. The right hand was the one holding the C-. Guess what I believed in for the longest time? That red chicken scratch on my paper with the C- is an image that'll never leave my brain. Even though I made it to the dean's list, I was top of my class in the more important of the classes that actually meant something for graduating. That teacher said that, and it was like, I have to break away from, I am not that grade. I'm not that one person's opinion of me. And understanding that, I was like, I'm a great writer. Actually, funny enough, is I started a content marketing agency not long after that and became world class, world renowned at it. So you can choose what paper you want to believe in. It's the A+ or the C-. And I'm that A+ girl.
And whatever you believe will be true. That is how powerful you are. If you believe that you can't, you won't. Totally. If you believe you will, and you can. Good reminder.
Yeah, I love that story and that study. It's so important. Okay, so a couple last questions for you. Imposter syndrome is, it's still something we're talking about. And I think it relates to this too, right? Because like imposter syndrome, in terms of me deciding that I'm the A+ student, although I don't believe it, but making that decision. How do you think, maybe personal experience or what you've seen with people that you've worked with, how do people get through the feelings of being an imposter?
There's 2 options here. The first option is maybe it's like, when people start with affirmations and your whole life you've told yourself that you're a C-, and now you're going to start telling yourself that you're an A+. Of course, you're not going to believe it. You've told yourself something for your whole life through application of one day. Of course, you're not going to believe it, right? And then there's going to be a whole time frame of murkiness where some days you're like, yes, I am brilliant. And some days you're like, why did I think this was a good idea? So I think we have to also normalize the process. We live in this very fast world of like, you click a button and it's there. And so we want business to be the same. Like, oh, where do I press the button for I believe in myself? Where do I press the button for? And it actually doesn't work that way. So there needs to be a space for compassion for you as you go through these processes. I think sometimes when we're like, I'm an imposter syndrome, and we over amplify it and we make it bigger than it is, then what you're doing is you're identifying now with being an imposter, and you're actually kind of affirming that more than where you want to be going. So that's something to really, really note. And then the second thing is this a wound for you? Right? It's like, am I in the murky journey from where I was to where I'm going? And like life hasn't caught up yet? Or is it, is my business touching on a wound that I have from child? that is really around my insecurity, that is really around not believing that I'm enough. It's really around, do you know what a big one for me was? Okay, let's go back to me being small. And I was a year younger in my school, in my primary school. So if I'd been born one day later, I would be in the class below. So the kids felt so old to me. And I felt, honestly, as a child, that I wasn't allowed to sit at the big kids' table. And obviously, as an adult, I think to myself, well, that was child Hannah. But it showed up for me in business because I wouldn't take opportunities where I was with older people. I wouldn't do collaborations and I wouldn't get my work out there. I wouldn't be visible because I'd be like, people are going to know that I'm not a big kid. People are going to think that I'm a little kid. And it wouldn't be in that language. And it wasn't until I did that healing process that I just kind of told you about with my partner, which is what I teach in my school, all of these healing processes. And I reprogrammed it, that I was suddenly, it was this feeling, because you can shift it and you can clear it in the energetic field. You can clear the wounds. People don't know that. It's very easy when you know how. Okay. You go into the energy field and you clear the wound, right? And suddenly that self-doubt that I'm a small kid disappeared from my consciousness. And it's really extraordinary. When I actually did that specific clearing, I think I had like 3 clients drop through the next day and like collaborations come through. And it really was, I mean, I was like, just said, you can't press a button. And I'm like, well, when you understand energetics, it's the closest you can get to pressing a button and fixing something.
There is an easy button.
So I think you really have to learn to discern between both. Is business touching something like a little dark room in my psyche that I need to go look at? Or am I just in process? And am I just learning? Like the first time that I spoke, the first time that I wrote content, the first program that I launched, I also felt like, and it was only through doing it and reaffirming that I felt comfortable. And so there's a time and place for that as well. So
I had an opposite experience as you're growing up because I'm 6 feet tall. And I thought I was too big for everybody. So how tall are you?
I was really small. I'm 5'2", 5'3".
Because you're not like super duper small. One of my good friends, Farron, she's 4'11", and I can like rest my elbow right on her head. Actually, she's shorter than my 10-year-old son. Yeah, my 10-year-old boy is 5'1". He's going to be huge. But it's interesting because you had your tiny experience and I had like my tall girl experience, of which I felt shamed just as much. I love this. And I think there's a lot of takeaways for the listeners. I have one last question for you. When I ask you what it means to be a wild woman, what is that for you? Utter authenticity and full expression of who you actually came to be. I love that. Okay, so Hannah, if people want to go online to find you, follow you, or sign up for one of your programs, where can they go? I have a couple of free programs, so you can come and have a full-day journey with me and learn more about the laws of the universe, healing, energetics. What does this actually mean, right? We hear this thrown around social media a lot, but it's my big thing to make it tangible. I'm a Virgo woman, so I like to make the energetic grounded and accessible and practical and tangible. So I'm sure you guys will have the links to be able to do some of those free courses with me. Instagram is also a great place. Come and reach out, come say hi. If you've got any questions, I love to hear from you guys, or any aha moments from this podcast. It's like, it makes me so happy when people come and they say, Hannah, I listened to this and then suddenly something clicked for me. And I'm like, yes, this is why I'm doing this work. So I think both of those things. I also certify people in these healing modalities, this system. We're bringing this to the world now. This is what I'm doing this year. Until now, it's been the creation of this. 11 years in the making, guys. I've taken it very seriously. I know, not an overnight success. No, she didn't push the button. There was a lot of restless nights, let me tell you. But it's here. But that's all a part of the journey. So if you're looking at getting certified, or you just want to look at what healing means and the ways that you can do it, just get in contact. Oh, I love it. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you so much for having me. So there you have it. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Into the Wild. To make this girl happy and to help reach other women who are dreaming of starting their business, please leave us a 5-star review on iTunes and everywhere you listen in. Also, if you want to find me in the wild, check me out on Instagram at Renee_Warren. That's RENEE_WARREN. And leaving you with one of my favorite tips of all time: the best advice you could ever receive is from someone who has successfully done it before you. Until next time, ladies, peace out.